I'm now live. So, one of the things I did yesterday when I went out urban sketching is I filled some of these pens with regular Waterman ink and some of them with platinum carbon ink that is supposed to be waterproof. First of all, let's find out how well these hold up. So these are the ones I filled with platinum carbon ink. So let's find out if they, in fact, just start writing away like a regular Waterman pen might, or pen with Waterman ink. See? I figured that would happen. Let's try that, just dipping it, getting it going. So the waterproof, the water, I guess, dissolved the ink, making it flow now. So how does that work? How does waterproof ink use water? Let's try this one. See, this is the issue. So even a few hours after I filled them, when I filled them here, and then I went to the Back Bay station, and an hour later I handed 2 of these to a fellow artist who was going to draw with them, try them out. And even then, just after an hour, I had to sort of coax them to get going. So let's try this one. Okay, I don't like that. I don't want to carry around water with me or shake it or try to do everything else to get it going. I want it to get going right away. You know, that the Hindenburg isn't going to just stay up there when I'm trying to draw it exploding. Oh, wait. Humanity, stop. Don't crash and burn in a terrific explosion, ladies and gentlemen. Just hold on. Let me get my pen going. This is one that I used for some of these drawings, which I'll show you in a second. See, this one worked. This one is just nice and blobby. I think I also used this later in the day, yesterday maybe. I can't remember. It's all a blur. This one I gave to the other artist, and he loved them because they wrote really well, except he's a lefty, and he draws a lot like this, and he uses cross-hatching. So the drawings he did were absolutely beautiful with these pens, but he doesn't ever sort of draw in the direction where you can actually take advantage of a flexible nib. So these are those. Here are some pens that have regular Waterman ink that I used. Oh, look at that. Let's try the others. Yeah, I don't have to stick them in water. No. I'm not sure I brought all of these out with me. This one I might not have brought out with me. But this is Waterman ink. Some of these, I thought my desk is full of pens. I don't think I brought this one with me either. But anyway, the regular water soluble ink works really, really well in these pens and flows nicely. And I don't have to kickstart it. So now let's see, after a day, I have a brush. I had a brush. I have a brush right here. Here's some water. So this will dissolve water ink that is not waterproof, because that's what it does. And I actually like taking a brush to a drawing I did that has ink that is water soluble, because it sort of turns into, let me just move these out of the way. I dreamt of having a new studio. Couldn't believe how much space I had. Okay. So this, I think this is water soluble ink. So let's pretend I brought my brush and my glass of water to this place, and I continued to draw using this and dissolving the ink. A lot of people at Urban Sketchers, they might do the drawing in pen and ink, and then later they go in with watercolor, or they cover it with watercolor, and when they get home, and in a way that's cheating. According to the Urban Sketchers, you're supposed to draw everything on site. So this paper also, I have in my house, I have many, just stacks of different kinds of paper, and some of it works well. This paper is very fibrous, so it bleeds a little bit. Doesn't bleed, what's it, feathers a little bit. Someone corrected me. Tamak Elf, nice to see you. This was another one I did using very textured paper, as you can see. This was with my Waterman ink. So this should also dissolve. This guy had a yellow shirt and black pants, black shoes. And so it's just the ink dissolving, and he's drawing on his piece of paper here. Looks kind of like Donald Trump. So even this paper is very weird. There's little tiny spots that are showing up, and I don't quite understand what that is, but it's just weird textured watercolor paper that if I was doing a watercolor and those spots happened, I would be very upset. Or not. This, I think I did this using, well, I know I did this using the carbon ink. So I should be able to add water without any of this bleeding. Now there could have been a little bit of old ink in the pen, so there might be, a molecule or two of regular ink, Waterman ink. But you can see here that there was a little bit of feathering. This paper. Anyway, let's just see what happens. So it's just, should be just water, and it isn't bleeding. So that's good. I guess it does work. It may take a while for it to dry, the ink. So anyway, that's pretty cool. This, I think this was waterproof ink, but I'm not positive. Oh, I think I used two different kinds of ink on this one, but again, I don't know. Two different pens that had different kinds of ink. Something tells me that the dark lines are and now the brush is contaminated, so this is not a good test. We can go back to here. All of this should be waterproof ink. Good. I mean, occasionally there were spots that had ink that was not dry yet. I know this was with my Waterman ink. So these all should dissolve. and making those spots. Yes, I know that there are no rules when I was talking about cheating and doing your finishing the drawings at home, which is against the rules. That was the rule I talked about. You know, you can decide in your drawing or your whatever you're doing that there are rules. You know, you can't. You might, let's say you're a sculptor. You can't actually. You could decide for yourself. You can't take an actual human, cover them in plaster, and burn the body out, and then make a bronze statue of a real person. That's against the rules. But or you could say, I am doing something plein air, meaning I am outside. I did the painting all in one go. But generally speaking, yes, you don't have. There are no rules, or they're meant to be broken or something. So here's some mangy beds. This is my friend Deb Peck, who I didn't realize was there until an hour later when I sat over here looking at her that way. And she's a pen collector friend of mine who is in urban sketching. So I think this is the water soluble ink. Ta-da! What I did for this one is I used this pen that has sort of not very much ink in it, and I've dipped it in actual ink or ran it over ink, and it got dirty. So what's left of it comes out sort of like this. But this acts sort of like a brush. So I could, where's one of my pens that has ink in it? Okay, Atomic is telling me the difference between the kinds of watercolor paper. Yes, hot press and cold press. I know there is a difference. I don't know if that's the issue here, because there's so many different kinds of watercolor paper you can get out in the real world, and some of it's student grade, and some of it is professional grade. And so anyway, so I can take this pen and it sort of dissolves the ink. And again, this paper is different from this paper. This paper is sort of shimmery. So if I draw on this, the ink sort of sits on top rather than be sucked into the paper. So this, I can go over this and it all disappears. But here, you know, the ink stays. I mean, some of the ink might dissolve, but the ink is in the paper. Here it's sitting on top. And that's what's really fun about experimenting with paper, because it's all different. Different inks are different. And if I had a memory and could remember what ink I put in a pen or what paper does, then there wouldn't be any surprises, I guess. I like going to a place and taking out a pen and finding out what the fuck is wrong with this paper. Oh, well, it's kind of cool, so I'll go with it. Or I might just say, oh fuck, this is awful, I'm going to go home. So it's just interesting. Let me go back. So these, I have to remember that these I have filled with platinum ink, because I want to also see in a week when I open them up again whether they're completely clogged and I have to replace the sack and take everything apart, which I hope I don't have to do, because I would love to be able to sell a pen like this to people that want to do watercolors on top of their ink drawings. And I've always been a little tiny bit hesitant. I do tell them that there is this ink that does work, and it has worked for me, but I've never really done what I would consider a test using that. So, Atomic, are you still here? Would you like to join me live? It seems to be fine, this ink. I mean, it seems like I'm able to draw fast and it's not skipping. So it's working better than I thought. At least in that one. Maybe in the Schaefer pen it won't. Oh, it's okay. Well, you don't have to show me your pants. You can keep your pants off. Or you could have the camera aiming down at your table instead of your junk. Invite. Copy. Copied. Well, you can have morning coffee. Come on. You can talk without. In fact, I've got some coffee I can bring right now. So you sign up and I'll get my coffee and we can just talk. You can have the camera be black. Now, I know I've spoken with you here before, but I don't remember anything that we've said. So here's, again, that ink I just tried. So it is dissolving, but it's still wet. That's why it's dissolving. But once it dries, it should stay undissolved. Okay, I'm getting my coffee. You press that button. I can climb out of my thing here. Be right back. Okay, Pierce, stand. Good coffee. Great coffee, Mrs. Olson. Oh, thank you. It's Folgers. It's mountain grown. Coffee. Okay, where am I going to put the coffee cup? Can it fit here, do you think? Is that flat? It's flat. Okay, let's go back to this paper. Back to this ink, rather. Look at this. Listen to that paper. I love vintage ledger paper. This is a little shittier than maybe this. It's older, certainly. But it's really a nice, crisp surface. There Ben is. Add to stage. Hello, Ben.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, I put some pants on here.
Now
I never trust that let me flip this camera.
That a camera is not going to show you that you don't have pants on?
No, I never trust that I'm not gonna have a camera snafu, people
I see.
drop their stuff all the time.
Now
Thanks.
have you stopped watching the YouTube channel and you're just doing it through StreamYard?
I believe so. Let me just
Okay,
check.
good. It doesn't sound like you have an echo, so I'm just.
Yeah, I'm using my Bluetooth earpiece.
So it seems to me I do remember having you live before because I remember your voice. Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, I did join you once before. I'm trying to figure out how I how do I flip my camera around
You
here?
go down to settings. There should be a thing at the bottom.
I see more, but I don't see settings.
Well, try more then. It might be under more, and then hit settings or camera.
Oh, settings. There we go. Okay.
So are you on?
Camera 0, 1, 2, 3.
There you go. There's the kitties.
There's the kitties.
Now, are you? Again, I'm sorry for not remembering, but are you an artist?
Of sorts, yeah. I do a little bit of drawing, just kind of for myself, so I keep kind
Okay.
of a sketch journal where I do little doodles and such.
Okay. What do you
I
do
do-
for real life?
Real life, the last 7 years I've been in manufacturing. I'm in
Okay.
between jobs right at the moment, but yeah, I do a little bit of sketch work. I do some acrylic painting as well.
Oh, nice.
So I
Oh,
do some
okay.
justice here. Do a little bit
I
of
do.
sketching.
Wow. You like that black ink, and you like filling that page.
Yeah. So it's a
Wow.
little, just some eclectic stuff.
Yeah.
This
Funny.
isn't really for, like, I don't do this for public consumption.
Well,
per se.
let's have everyone forget what they see.
Yes. In other words, I'm not doing it. You know, I'm doing it more for myself.
Well,
This aspect.
I've learned. Right now, I'm doing art for myself as well, rather than art that I used to show in an art gallery, and I find it much more fun because when I had a quote art career, I had to think about. I was encouraged to think about, well, how is this show better than the one I had before? And that's not how art works all the time. Sometimes you try something new and maybe you're learning how to do it, but you want to keep trying to learn how to do it. And there might be a year or two when you aren't making anything that a gallery wants to show. So sort of that joy of singing in the shower without having to sing on stage is a lot more
Right.
fun. But there's nothing, there are people that know how to maneuver the gallery show shtick. But even now with the interweb and showing things on Instagram or whatever, and so much art is being made that's digital, there's really nothing. There's so much art that's created that can't go on a wall in a gallery or above your couch if you liked it without printing it out. So it's all very different. Oh, pizza. Like, so, so, what is your favorite paper? I bet you have a favorite paper.
I don't really have one as yet.
Okay. Well, I lost that bet.
That's one of my plans for the near future, is to kind of branch out and explore some more papers and inks.
Yeah. Well, if you find paper that you really, really like, my advice would be to buy a lot of it, because chances are next week or next year that company is going to figure out a way to make it cheaper, and it'll be shittier paper. So
that, or it becomes unavailable. I worked a number of years ago in the printing industry for they were mostly a label printer, but they did some lithographic printing and some line press printing as well. And somebody would want a certain kind of paper, and it wasn't always available.
No, I one of the things I have when I live in an artist building, and two or three, excuse me, two or three of us were professional graphic designers, meaning they did big jobs for big companies rather than what I do, which was jobs for weddings and stuff. So I only had to make 100 copies of something rather than 5,000 copies. And so these professional graphic designers had these beautiful sample booklets from various paper mills, and I love using them because I have in a little sketchbook that has 60 different kinds of paper in it, no two alike, and it's sort of fun. But the kinds of paper that I loved using, because I would have to do drawings and scan them in, and I wanted to use paper that was bleed proof. And there was one company that made really, really good. I didn't really care about the bleed through to the other side. It was more the feathering, and it was
Right. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful paper. I could make a big fat line with a big fat pen, and it wouldn't feather. So then I bought another stack of sketchbooks, and they all feathered. So I went back to the company and I complained, and they said, well, we don't know anything about this, the art supply store. But I saw that they still had, I could tell the difference between the old stock and the new stock because the cover had just a slightly different color purple on the cover. So I bought every tablet of the deep purple color, and I used that paper very sparingly because at some point it will run out and then I'll be screwed. So
yeah, who knows what kind of quality
and they may do the same exact thing that they did before, but there's some new chemical they're buying or some new paper shredder or whatever, however they make paper. They're doing
or environmental concerns where they have to stop using one particular
the
product.
ozone layer is disappearing, and that's causing trouble. So my advice would be, if you do find a paper that you really, really like, buy 2 or 3 other sketchbooks, and if they have the same quality, then buy the rest that the store has and put it in a sealed room until you need it.
Right.
That was another thing, doing calligraphy on days that were humid, where there was a lot of moisture in the air and moisture in the paper and everything, it would bleed. So even the temperature and the humidity in the outside world causes trauma. So you're drawing, that's a blue thing.
A blue thing, some sort of
anemone.
To me, it looks like some sort of undersea creature.
Undersea cucumber.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's it's all just fascinating what different pens do. Each is so unique to itself, and the paper can completely change the experience of drawing or writing. The ink can also inspire. Like, I'm just at random picked this pen that must have had turquoise ink in it, and now I'm thinking, boy, this is a pretty color. And then I come to my sense. Then I come to my senses and go back to boring, depressing black to match my soul. But this is kind of fun. I'll play with this today. Maybe it'll make me smile. What is that?
This is actually just a page where I took ink and I
smeared
and just smeared it. It might have been acrylic black paint.
Yeah.
But I think it was ink. So this paper is not too bad. It's this is just kind of a multi-purpose paper. I don't know what they called the paper in this, but it's just like a sketchbook from a big box retailer.
Yeah, there was
And so
one
you get
company.
something.
There was a company I like, Strathmore, something Surface, All Surface, or All Media paper, and that's pretty good because it has enough tooth that a pencil can work nicely on it. It's smooth enough that a pen can work on it, and it's sort of thick enough that watercolor doesn't cause it to wrinkle. So it's pretty nice paper. I forget what it's called. Oh, there's a kitty. Is that with pen or with pencil?
Oh, this is with pen.
Pen,
Yeah.
okay. And
Generally, I don't.
Is that a kitty? Is that a kitty that held still for you for 5 hours?
No. This was just based off of an image.
I can see where you nailed his ears to the wall so he couldn't move.
Yes.
I see the little nails in there. I used to love drawing my cat before this one. His name was Orca, and he looked like the orca whale, which is a dolphin or something. But anyway, he looked like an orca because he had sort of this big geometric pattern of black against white. And he was relatively symmetrical in his markings. But it was really fun drawing him. The cat I have now is just this long-haired brown, like 4 different colors of dark brown, and it's hard to do a drawing of her. She's very pretty. She has beautiful fur. She'll make a beautiful pair of mittens one day. but
yeah,
she's hard to draw. You're a what?
I'm a cat lover myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I like dogs too, but I prefer cats.
I can see by the pictures that you and your mouse pad, a dog lover and a cat hater would not have a mouse pad with a cat on it. would be my guess.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of do a little bit of everything. Like this, this probably looks just horrible, but this was just a drawing that I did with my eyes closed, just as
and you spent all of 2 minutes on it at the most, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. It was an interesting exercise to see, and I was trying to draw a man on the street, and that's
okay.
What it ended up looking like.
Well, I can see the street. I can see where the street might be, and I can kind of see where the man is, but he looks like he's the drum major in a marching parade. He sort of has that stance of, oh, and another kitty. No, alligator. I can see. The middle of the thing that's holding my iPad up above me is this contraption that I made that has a pipe cleaner holding it in place, and the pipe cleaner is covering your drawing. I'll have it cover mine, so now I can see what you're doing. Little squiggles, is that what those are?
Yeah, just little squiggles. So like sometimes I get in depth into a particular subject. Sometimes I'm just, here's my ugly cat. This was a quick drawing exercise, just where
with one line. You did lift up, I see, and put back
yeah
down.
I did lift up. It was just like keep drawing, like keep the pen moving without.
That looks like it looks like the cat is slowly turning into wood. Like it looks like a branch of an oak tree. The cat is. I know that when wood turns to stone, it's petrification.
Piece of cat driftwood on the beach.
And when something turns to bone, it's ossification. But when a cat turns to wood, what would that be? Pussification. Now, if a stone turns into a cat, it would be pussification. But I don't know if there is such a thing as turning into wood. I mean, I don't know if that's a natural thing. Turning into stone. Oh, and there's a man with a nose and quite serious bags under his eyes.
Yes.
A long night, a long day at work, a long night at work, or lots of really bad dreams keeping him up. Oh, that's neat. The lettering. Yeah, it looks like you're going all over the place.
So
you're
it's kind of an exploration.
your brain is hit with an idea, and you say, "Damn the torpedoes!" Get out a pen and start in drawing. What? Now you said you were going to play with different kinds of inks. What do you mean by that?
So I do a bit of writing as well.
Journaling or
personal journaling,
okay.
of idea stuff, and then I'm also a little bit into fictional writing.
Okay.
And so I kind of I'd like to explore some of the broader range of ink colors that are available for fountain pens.
Well, and how many pens do you have in your collection?
At this point, I want to say I'm pushing like 30 to 40.
Okay, that's a good number.
I mean,
here's some advice.
Half of them are probably modern, and half would be considered vintage.
My advice would be pick an ink you like and a pen that you like using that ink in, and just say, okay, this blue pen is going to be for Parker Blue ink, and that's it. And that way, you don't have to clean it out every time you change the ink. And I mean, maybe you're one of these people that brushes your teeth and you don't mind cleaning. you know how to use a vacuum. Maybe you're one of those kind of people and you like cleaning your pens, but I'm too lazy for that. And this pen I use mainly just with blue ink, and if it's not exactly the same color blue as I used the day before, it's blue enough for my needs. But again, if you don't care about the ink sort of having some contamination from an earlier fill, that's okay. Or clean it out all the time. So it looks like there's a big yellow pen. Who made that thing?
This is a Visconti.
Oh, okay.
Visconti Breeze, which this is totally not a pen that I would have bought retail in this color.
Oh, yeah. It should be called the Visconti Coward because it's yellow.
They call it the lemon, which
well, that's a good color name for it too, especially if it doesn't work.
Actually, it's a very nice pen. It's
okay.
It's the lower end offering from a higher end company
line. Yeah.
It's got a bit of feedback to the nib.
It looks like so it's a screw cap.
No, actually, it's magnetic.
Oh, I see. Oh, cool. And is there a big step down between the barrel and the section?
There's a little bit, but
a little bit doesn't bother you.
It's not too bad now.
That's one of the turnoffs I have with any pen, and it's seen mainly in modern pens. I don't really know any vintage pens that have that step down, but I guess there are some. There maybe good.
I will say that, for example, in this Pilot Elite, which was my first gold nib pen.
Yeah.
I do like this elongated section.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. There's a lot of room for you to move your fingers up and back.
Right. And I typically prefer a shallower angle when I'm using the pen. So it's nice to be able to hold it a bit back.
Yeah.
And have a little more control.
Now the other four look like they're Sheaffer cartridge pens. Or cartridge of some sort.
Yeah, these are Sheaffer cartridge pens, these three up here.
Yeah.
Which I kind of just like the simplicity sometimes.
Yeah.
And they've got really nice flow to them.
I recently bought a lot of pens on eBay, and it included this Sheaffer cartridge pen, and I thought, these are things I normally just throw in a box and I have at the pen show for $1 a piece. Just because I never really considered them fountain pens. They're too modern for me, for my collection. They don't have gold nibs. But I thought, well, let me just try this out. And it has a beautiful nib. And if this nib were gold and made in 1920, I'd say this is a beautiful gold nib pen. Makes a beautiful line, but it is one of these Sheaffer pens. And the problem with these pens with any steel nib pen is at some point the nib might spring too much and never go back to its correct. It won't go back together again.
Yeah, these aren't really flexible.
It'll skip on you, and it might corrode depending on what kind of metal they use. If it was stainless steel of some sort, that's one thing, but if it's just steel. But I was really surprised about this one. Also, I like the fact that the pen was used so much that it's the chrome plating is worn off, so you see the brass underneath, which showed it looks like the person held it like this really far back. That's where it would hit you. So they must have held it like this, just quite far back.
I must say I like the way they post as well. I typically prefer to post a pen. I don't want to. I'll put up with a pen if I really like the pen. To not have it post, that limits its usefulness for me. Like I don't want a pen that if I'm out and about and I uncap it, to find some place to
put the cap.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time I ever I read in some contemporary instruction manual or something for vintage pens, but they were new back then. And one of them said, if you loan your pen to someone to sign their name, keep the cap in your hand, and that will ensure that they're going to give it back to you. For one thing, which I've always liked. There's a scene in a Bing Crosby movie. I think he plays when he's playing one of the Catholic priests, and he hands a pen to someone to sign something, and he goes out of his way to uncap the pen, and then I don't know if the woman is taking the whole pen, but he takes it back and keeps the cap. It seemed like it was more obvious to the viewer that that's what he was doing, and I think he was also doing the usual poor as a church mouse, Catholic priest kind of guy, so he couldn't afford to buy a new pen if she took it with her. So I'll have to find that scene because it's actually quite fun. I wanted to do a compilation for one of the pen shows we had in Boston where I would show movies in which a fountain pen played a role, not necessarily a starring role, but some sort of role in the plot, or it appeared somewhere. And there was the movie Hindenburg that came out with George C. Scott. I think he was the only person that. I think LeBeau was in it, the guy from Hogan's Heroes. He also was in that movie, and Burgess Meredith was in it. But anyway, George C. Scott was the star. And the movie starts out with a woman writing a letter to the FBI saying the Hindenburg is going to explode. And she's using a Schaefer flat top fountain pen. And so you knew that that pen was created and sold before 1929. And I thought, well, how old was, one of the questions was, what is the, how old was this pen when she wrote the letter? So the Hindenburg blew up in 1936, I think. So you could do the math. And that was the question for that little scene. Another movie, Lifeboat, has 10 people in a lifeboat after it was torpedoed, and one of the characters, who is very wealthy, has a solid gold, what appears to be a solid gold Eversharp pen and pencil set in their wife beater t-shirt that they're wearing. So anyway, they're kind of so that looks like a Schaefer no nonsense pen. Is that it's a
this is actually a
Osmeroid. Osmeroid. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Yep. And this is interesting. You probably have seen this before, but some people might not. The tip design is very unique. They call it a roll-a-tip, where the tip is simply rolled over on itself in this little loop. So instead of having tipping material on the tip, it's just the metal of the nib rolled over and curled underneath.
Oh, neat. Okay.
You probably can't see it there.
I can't see it, but it sounds kind of neat. The Osmeroid made pens for calligraphers. So you might find just general writing with them less easy than lettering with them. They may require you to hold the pen in exactly a certain kind of way. And so you might find them a little problematic.
Yeah, this particular one, I've had some issues where the nib seems to hold an excessive amount of ink. I want to, that wants to just burp a little bit.
Yeah.
But I haven't figured out if that is primarily due to, because I had just filled it. I just got this pen a little bit ago. But this is kind of the design here is it just kind of curls over on itself, and there's no tip material.
It looks like a elephant nose gonna feed itself.
Yeah, exactly. Which this pen I haven't had more than maybe 2 weeks or so, I think. But I have a different model, which is just a little bit better made, and it's a lever fill, whereas this is a cartridge pen. And I actually like that pen much better, and it came with different nib, replaceable nib sections.
Okay.
This one just has their own cheapy squeeze converter.
Yeah,
this was a real low end pen. It is gold plated.
Well, that doesn't.
Yahoo.
That's just adding something that's going to unplate and cause trauma.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I guess you get a little bit of
there's a little bit
erosion
of
protection.
There's a little bit of glamour,
depending on how thick the plating is, right? Because
oftentimes when you would see gold-plated pen nibs in vintage pens, the word 14 karat gold and then underneath you can see the top of the P, the top of the L, the little point of the A. So, yeah, but I'm just playing with pens that are in my sale drawer, and of course I'm my best customer. Here's a Gold Bond pen that actually is quite lovely, so I'll just keep that one, just because no one wants to buy my pens. Now I used to sell lots of pens to lots of people off the street, and they were artists and calligraphers and students, and but now that the internet is here and people buy them online or on eBay, or you don't find them at flea markets anymore. People are sort of smartened up and are selling them, or they can find collectors. They know enough about pens that they might just have one collector they call every time they get a pen lot, and they'll offer it to them, because some pens can be worth $1 and some pens can be worth $1,000, and they might look alike to
Right.
the antique dealer. So they find someone they trust and they just say, give me what's fair. But
Well, and
I
some people
used
don't really know what they have, right? Like I
yeah
saw a listing the other day for a fountain pen, and the guy says it needs new ink cartridge, and I look at it, it's a Vacuumatic filler.
yeah well, I mean, again, you don't expect someone to know, an antique dealer to know everything about everything. They have to make a guess. Or they just describe it as best they can and hope it works. And there are pen collectors out there that they love showing pictures of a typewriter or whatever it is that they're collecting, and
Mhm.
I can't believe that this costs so much. I told the lady how much it's worth, and she laughed at me, and it wasn't worth $1,000. It was only worth $50, and she asked me to leave the store. And I always type whenever people say that. I say, well, when you see a fountain pen that is worth $1,000 that's priced at $10, do you tell the lady that doesn't know anything that it should be $1,000?
Yeah, I had to
No, but
laugh the other
they're
day.
very happy to tell people that they're overcharging.
Yeah, I had to laugh the other day when you and Cedar were talking. You're talking about pricing, and I laughed because I tend to run in the opposite direction where I go, no, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say this pen is worth more. I like that deal.
I like that.
And not
I'm very
now
happy.
now there's a difference between, some stranger on the street and if I was at a pen show. I'm not trying to, uh,
I don't mind. I'm very happy to pay a price that, if I want to buy something, I'm very happy to pay the price that's asked. Sometimes if I'm at an antique shop and I say, even if the pen price is good, they're all, nicely priced, I might say, how much for all 10 of them? Asking for sort of a bulk discount, because I'm making their life easier, even if they're all worth $1,000 a piece, and they're offering for 10. I might say, I don't always say that, but I might say, how much would for all of them. But when
right.
I see $1,000 pen that's marked for $20 and say, will you take 10? I want to take that person out to the back of the antique shop and shoot them, because it makes them, because those people will find out that that pen was worth $1,000 someday, and they're going to think all pen people are cheap.
Right,
And
right.
only
And then you have the
only
other people who
only
want to
80%
charge.
only 80% of us are cheap. not,
Yeah.
not all of us. But
And then you have the
uh,
people that run in the opposite direction. I messaged a lady because she had a modern fountain pen that can still be bought brand new from a retailer.
yeah,
And the price that she was asking plus shipping was like $2 under what you could buy it brand new.
Yeah, that
and it didn't come with a.
still has the guarantee and the box and the instructions and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and again, you can't blame people for not spending hours and hours and hours doing research and trying to figure out, what in fact they have. Um, but there are there was, I'm not sure that this is interesting enough story, but I'll say it anyway. There was three people, three pen collectors, three actual pen collectors said, Pierre, I was at an antique shop in New Hampshire, and there were 5 LeBouf pens for sale for $100 or something. And each of these was worth $100 by itself. And all three of these pen collectors, rather than, I mean, it was nice that they told me, but they could have made money. They could have
Right.
bought it themselves, called me on the phone, and charged me twice what I had paid for them. But
Well, I
it
think
just
that's the
was,
thing is, fountain pens are so individualized, right? Like
yeah,
our tastes differ so wildly in the
yeah.
community.
But
Uh,
this was like, I found a $5 bill on the street, and it's on the corner of 2nd and 23rd. Go pick it up. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. And but again, they have to take the money out of their wallet. Maybe they didn't have enough for all of them. Maybe they just thought that I was a nice guy.
mm.
Stupid people. How could they possibly think that? So anyway, hi, Kim. Kim from Denmark is in the room. So there was another story I had about antique store prices and stuff like that, but it's neither here nor there at this point. I think we've kicked that dead horse enough.
Now these are Parkers here. If you
Okay,
want to change the
Parker.
subject. I know you have some Parkers.
I have
Uh,
many Parkers, but in those I see a 45. I don't know what that one is that you're holding in your hand. It
yeah,
looks
this
like,
is a modern Parker Jotter.
yeah. Okay.
This is kind of an entry level pen
Yeah.
for the modern day, which is
Yeah.
a decent writer, snap cap,
Yeah.
uh, decently built. Although I'm a little miffed that the finishes come off. These two pens came in contact. It's the same model, but the two pens came in contact with a metal coin that I
Oh
had in
dear.
the pouch, and just rubbing a little bit against the metal coin took the finish off, and I was a little
Yeah, it's whenever I see any modern pen that has metal plating, I think it must be really, really thin. So it's going to plate really quickly, and especially the ones that have metal right there at the very end of the top of the section.
Mhm.
And I can just see with my naked eye, I can see it corroding in front of me. The ink or the moisture gets underneath, and it's just a disaster waiting to happen. And you see it on old pens. There are lots of wall pens that have metal sections, and they often corrode at the end, and they look horrible. And what I will do sometimes is I'll file it down to at least make it all even. I didn't do it here. There's corrosion here, and it's not bothering me because I don't see that's underneath the nib on the bottom side. So, but it does bother me when I see it, and I'll file it down so it's all the same.
Yeah, this is a Parker 45. I'm sure you're well familiar with them.
Yeah, the 45s. They're too modern for me to use normally, but I found one that in my collection of pens, and it had silk screened on the side of it the name of a governor of Minnesota, and it was a pen that he gave out to people. C. Elmer Anderson, governor. And so I thought, well, this is kind of fun, and I had an extra fine nib in a different one, so I put the extra fine nib in C. Elmer Anderson's pen, and I carried it around with me. And what I loved about that pen was it was so light in my pocket. I didn't feel like there was anything there. I wasn't walking sideways, because if I put 6 Wall Eversharp pens in my pocket, I'm tilting because they're so heavy.
Right.
So using the 45s, I thought, well, this is kind of fun. So I filled up a couple of other 45s that I had for sale, I think. I have maybe 8 in a collection, but in fact, I can find them right here.
This is a nice pen. It is nice and lightweight. This particular one had some it had some stuff up on the top of the finial here when I got it, and I had to clean it up a bit. And it looks like it's got some teeth mark here. It looks like somebody grabbed it with some pliers and either tried to tighten or unscrew the finial. And I know these are notorious. This one is in pretty good shape, but I know they're notorious for the section deforming. This plastic, it's got that kind of what's the term for it? That smell, that phenol smell.
Yeah.
Like it's made out of that particular type of plastic, and it deforms over time, where the prongs inside grip the section. But the nice thing I like about this model is that this front nib unit completely unscrews and comes apart. Unscrew this whole
They are nice
part,
for that.
and the nib pops out.
Yeah, I must have. This is one that's quote in my collection, unquote. I thought I would have more in my collection, unquote. And I know I've got the one that C. Elmer Anderson owned, but they're lovely pens. I would buy them anytime I would get them because I had customers for them. Or I used to sell pens through a pen store in Boston, and they would buy 45s all the time from me because they had cartridges, they were easy to sell, they worked really well, and I would sell them to them for wholesale them for 10 or 15 bucks a piece, and they would sell them for 30 bucks maybe. And I don't know what you buy them for at pen shows now. I haven't really looked for them, but they're every bit as good as the most expensive pen you can buy today. that's made today.
Yeah.
I think,
Let's see.
let me see if I can find just a minute here, because I know I just have to come down here. Look, these are these 45s and 21s. 21s are shitty. Let me see what this is.
You know what though?
Yeah. That's a 21?
This is a 21.
And is it broken? Is there?
It's in really good condition. It has on the nib on the underside, just down at near the section, there's a hairline crack there, just barely. You can't even see it. Like you have to, once it's inked up, you get just the tiniest bit of ink that seeps through there. But it's far enough down that it doesn't
get in your hands. They are notoriously horrible for cracking on the section, and finding one, I think if let's say I went out in the real world and went to every antique shop and thrift store and flea market and bought only Parker 21s without looking at them too carefully. I only bought them, and I would bring them home and I would look at them carefully. Half of them would have cracks in them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you did that with Parker 51s, every once in a while you'll find one that has a little tiny chip out of the top of the nose cone, and you might find one that has a crack maybe on the back end of the shell, but they're really good plastic, where the 21 had really crappy plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Now this is a Mark II.
okay.
There's a Mark I model and a Mark II model.
Okay.
This is called the Mark II Special, which was produced between 52 and maybe 65 is when it was discontinued.
See, you know these things. You know these things. Why don't I know them?
Well, because I jump on the internet and
and you remember. I used to know things like I never knew what a Mark I and a Mark II was. I just knew that they had different caps. So here's
and the Mark II is supposed to be a little more resilient, I think. I don't
know. Here's a 21 that was in that drawer, and it's this sort of green. What color is it? It's sort of a blue-green color. And I'm looking at it to see if there's any cracks. I don't see any cracks, but when I look at my fingers later today and I see that they're blue, then I'll know that, yep, it's cracked. No, this one's, I might actually fill this one up and use it just because you've made me want to use these pens. So see, this is what's nice about this.
And the nibs on these actually are kind of unique. This is actually one of the most pleasant writers that I have. It's got, what do they call this? Octanium was the material that they used for the nib. And I did some research, and it's a cobalt nickel chromium metal
mixture
mix. Okay. With a good bit of iron, some molybdenum, manganese, beryllium, and a little bit of carbon mixed in there. Which the only reason I'm remembering that is I have it written down here.
Okay.
I don't know that off the top of my head. And then the tipping material they used on it is ruthenium, which is element 44.
Now look at this one. This is a pretty blue color. This is another thing that happens. I don't know if you can see how shrunken this one got.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know whether someone decided to try to clean it up by sticking it in boiling water or what, but I have a couple of these that I have by my couch. Well, I have one that I have by my couch that has ink in it, and I can't sell it to anyone because of its deformation, but it's something that I can count on being usable, and if it falls into the cushion, and is lost forever, I don't mind. Sometimes I carry pens like this around that I can hand to people at a bar to write down their phone number for me. No, I'm joking about that, but where I can, if he's cute, I'll have him do that. But if I don't, I like saying, well, here's a pen, try it out. And I do it with my real pens, my, really nice pens. I'll give people lessons on how to use them. But if someone's a lefty, I feel a little bit anxious about the pens. They might hold it way too long and break it. So having a Parker 21 or a Parker 45 where if they completely break it, which is doubtful, I won't wear a black armband for a week, and they'll have the experience of getting a little bit of fountain pen joy out of using an actual fountain pen. So they come in handy for that. What else do you have there? That looks like off-brand some sort.
Yeah, this is a wherever.
Wherever, yeah.
You use it wherever. I thought this was unique. I don't know if this came with this clip design or somebody modified it, but it looks like a music note.
Oh, I think it's been modified. I think someone, I don't remember them ever producing anything like that, but wherever was probably the most guilty of kleptomania. They would any design that anyone ever had, any of the first tier pen companies had, they would just take it and run with it. They would have their version of the Schaefer striped pen. They'd have their version of the Vacuumatic stripe. Actually, they didn't really have that one. That horizontal stripe is sort of a Parker thing only, but they did a bunch of stuff that sometimes looked glitzy, but often didn't.
I can't remember the name of this particular nib design that it has, but it has the grind that
looks like a stub
up to but it tilts up to the right. What do you call
it? An oblique of some sort.
Right. I know one's called was it right-handed, left-hand? I can't remember which.
Yeah.
Which goes which direction, but I thought, it needs a new sack. I haven't really written with it much other than to dip it a couple of times.
See, here's another 21 that has that same shrunken thing. Now they did make 21s that had a 51 looking nib rather than the typical large opening with the bigger nib. So
yeah, I don't know if maybe this is on the Mark II. I know they changed some things to fix some issues with it. So I don't know if that was one of them. This has kind of a little bit of a bulbous.
Yeah, that's the kind of nib that I normally associate with 21s. Whereas the one that looks like a 51, like this one.
Oh, okay.
This is
with that flatter.
This is usually better. I mean, I associate it with better than the other one, but I think they all still suffer the same, bad plastic.
Yeah, this one's pretty good. Other than that one hairline crack, this is nice and smooth. I don't notice any deformation. On the 45, I notice there's some of that going on. But compared to some that I've seen in listing photos, which are just really deformed, this one's pretty good looking.
And where are you located in the real world?
I'm in Southern California.
Southern California, okay.
And somebody said to keep that from happening long term, when you're storing the pen on ink, just leave the cap popped off, and then it's not a flame front section.
Okay. So you go to the San Francisco Pen Show, or that's normal? You go to the
no, yeah, that's normal. I thought about going to the LA show this year. I know you had asked last time we talked. It was a bit before the show, and it wasn't going to happen this year. But I would like eventually get to a show.
Do you have a local pen club near you?
I don't think so. I'm very close to where Cedar lives, so
Oh,
I-
well, Cedar
he
is
is,
in Ventura.
yeah, I'm just in the neighboring city right next door to him.
What, Oxnard or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Well, you and Cedar should get together. Did I tell you that already? I think I did.
Yeah, I think you sent me his info, and I have yet to connect with him, but
Okay.
eventually I'm sure.
Well, he has a lovely collection of pens, and he's a sweet guy as well, and he I'm sure would love to meet you in person, and you could go drawing. Do you ever draw from the real world? Do you go out and try to draw that real tree, or?
To date, no, I haven't really done any plein
Okay.
air.
Okay. It's something that he and I did, and he said, I haven't done this in such a long time, and it's really neat to do that, where a lot of his drawings come from inside his head, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes when you are looking at a real thing in front of you and you're rendering it, you're trying to see how the shadows work and where they fall and how to draw that sort of texture. It actually can be quite fun. And when you go back to your inside of your head and do drawings, you might remember, oh yeah, the shadows actually work this way, or the texture of the tree when I was drawing it rather than when I'm thinking about it was different. So try it out with him. He does, and he also has a cat. Then he draws his cat quite often. What's your cat's name, if you have a cat?
I don't have a cat at this point in life.
Okay.
Just the circumstances aren't conducive for
Aren't-
it, but
Right. Yeah.
I've had cats in the past. I had one. I lived in rural Idaho for a while, and we had a cat that showed up on our doorstep pretty much during a thunderstorm, and that became my favorite animal for a while.
No. My my brother has a cat that showed up at our lake house, came in from the woods, and very tiny kitten. And I'm sure it was either abandoned by its mother, if the mother was astray, or by the human owners, because it was missing an ear, and it didn't have an ear. It was born without it, an external, bit of skin with fur on it. So we called it Van Gogh because he doesn't have an. We called it Van Gogh, and it's just a lovely cat, just a crazy monster of a thing. It's one of the funniest things about that cat is it would when it decided to lay down, it would just fall over. It didn't sit down and then get on all fours and then slowly go over. It was like someone just shot it. It just fell right over. And it was so funny. She seems so clumsy in that way, or she doesn't know how beautiful he doesn't know how beautiful he is. And in a way he isn't, because he's missing an ear, but he didn't go to finishing school, that cat.
The range of personalities is pretty fun. That cat that we had, her name was Sheba, and I built her a little cat house on the front porch. She was an outside cat. It got cold in the wintertime, and so I built her a little house. She was really sweet, but when she wanted attention, we had a screen door on the front porch, and she would reach up and she would grab the screen door and bang the screen door.
Pluck it.
No, she would actually bang the screen door
Oh, I see.
against the
whole
frame.
thing.
as a
Okay.
form of knocking.
Yes.
And if you didn't pay attention to her, she would jump up on the screen and hang there and peer in through the little window in the door
Yeah.
and meow until
Someone.
until you paid attention to her.
Yeah, they are funny. My cat is quite beautiful, and she knows she's beautiful. She sits just exactly like she's at a cat show, and she just knows how beautiful
Wrap,
she is. And then
wraps her tail around her feet and
you're, she's not really a tail wrap around her feet kind of girl. She I think her tail is too furry. She probably gets hot feet. Um, but she is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of cat. She allows me to treat her like a cat, and she expects to be treated like a dog from my three-quarter roommate who loves dogs and plays fetch and stuff like that with the cat. So she has these two completely different personalities, and she can turn from purr nice to slashing with her very sharp teeth and sharp claws. She doesn't do that to me because I'm not encouraging her to be the beast on the Serengeti, which is what Matt is playing with her like, with the fetch the crumpled piece of paper. He's encouraging that sort of behavior. So, oh, there's the kitties again.
there's the kitties.
Okay.
This is another pen that I need to restore. It needs a new sack and actually
Well,
no
as a
sack,
piston
a new
needs a
piston.
piston. Yeah. Well, good
Yeah,
luck on that.
yeah. I've gotten
If you
it
figure out how to
partly.
do it, I've got dozens of them for you.
I've gotten part of this back half off, and I've gotten the front part apart.
Yeah.
So, except
Yeah.
for this part, which, as far as I understand, is bonded on here and
Yeah. It's
moved unless you
there's a
chop
lot of
through.
a lot of things that have to work in that pen for it to work, and it's like a snorkel. A snorkel has 5 rubber pieces in it that
Mhm.
have to all work, and if one of them doesn't work, then it won't fill.
Yep.
And
Yeah, it's got a little packed area back here. There's some nice videos on here on YouTube
yeah.
showing how to do all of that. It's just, how do you do it without breaking something?
Well, I know how to break it. I can. You want me to show you how to break it? I can certainly do that. That's not going to help you fix it.
And this pen, I would say it wasn't worth the trouble, but I like the history of the pen, and the Triumph nib isn't really it doesn't have a lot of writing character. It's a very
no.
stiff nib,
Yep.
even though it's a gold nib. Um, but this is one of the earlier models that had an actual serial number on the nib,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
just
That.
kind of makes it a nice historical
Yeah.
piece.
I had a. I had a newspaper that was put up by the Schaefer Company and sent to their dealers, and it was the size of a regular newspaper, and a third of a page of an actual newspaper-sized publication was tiny print of the serial numbers of all the lifetime guarantee pens that were reported stolen. So dealers
Hmm.
were, if got one of these pens to repair or someone tried to sell it to you, you were supposed to look at the number and then look at the newspaper and find out if it was stolen or not, and then call the police.
Yeah, well, there
to
was a whole hullabaloo over they were only supposed to be selling through like authorized distributors. That was the big issue that came up.
Yeah.
I
So
won't get into
anyway,
the whole legal thing.
Yeah, and then they couldn't. Then the Federal Trade Commission said you can't guarantee things forever.
Right.
So the Blue Diamond Parker guarantee, the Gold Seal Eversharp guarantee, the Waterman 100-year pen, and the Schaefer pen had to not offer that anymore. And
the white dot that
the white dot. Well, the white dot became their
it
logo.
became iconic, but originally that's what
it was. It meant it was a lifetime pen, and the Eversharp pens, when they would sell a pen on sale, and they had the gold seal, and they wanted to cancel the guarantee, they would drill a little hole in it. So you do see those little tiny holes that were put there on purpose.
And that was drilled where?
Huh?
Where on the pen was that drilled?
There's I'll show you in 1 second. Come on, open up. Open up. Okay. Where are you? Okay, well, here's a Doric. And there's a little, above the clip, there's a little seal that has 2 check marks inlaid into the, see it?
Mm-hmm.
So they would drill a little tiny hole in that. And that would be saying this is no longer guaranteed for life. And
did they do that to the white dot pens as well then, through the white dot?
The white dot. I think this was something that only Eversharp did. Like here's one that has a hole drilled in it. See the hole?
Huh. Oh wow, yeah.
So it was something that I think Eversharp did it because maybe even before the Federal Trade said they couldn't offer them, but they did it when they were selling the pens on sale. You know, discounting the price at the store. They would say, "Well, just you're authorized to sell them for cheaper, but you have to drill out the lifetime guarantee part."
Huh.
So that was how they did it. I don't know whether any other company did that. Actually, yeah. Well, every company had a. Well, I don't know. Yeah, Parker had Parkette. I mean, but that was obvious. But Schaefer had Wasp and Clipper pens that they made using different names, and they were usually pens that had smaller nibs and smaller pens in general, and they sold them without the Schaefer name on them, but it would say Clipper pen, Fort Madison, Iowa, which is where Schaefer was. Eversharp had Oxford, Wall Oxford pens, but they still had the name Wall connected to it. But I think they also had Oxford or Paramount as their sub brands. I don't know whether Waterman had a sub brand. I'm unsure about that. And but anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. Oh, I think I need another cup of coffee. And that's Schaefer. So it was nice talking to you. That's
this is a modern. I've been pretty happy with Schaefer's, but
yeah.
the vintage ones I've gotten, but this is a modern one, and I have yet to get it to write correctly. It out of the box just did not want to write, so I'm hoping eventually I'll get it to be, might need
well,
to
find whatever ink you have that is the most watery. fill it with that for one. It might just be that the feed is so stingy, and
Yeah, that's
that's
possible.
that's the trauma, the problem with it. It's usually that's my main complaint with any modern pen is that their feed doesn't work well enough for me. It'll skip.
Mhm.
Now, there's other reasons for pens skipping, but that might be one of them. So my most recent pen that entered my collection is this Mont Blanc, and it was given to me by my neighbor, and the nib is bent, as you can see.
Ooh, yeah.
And it was bent a lot worse, and I got out my pliers and I fixed it to the best that I could at the moment. So at least it's smooth and it writes, it doesn't skip too
Hmm.
much. But anyway, I've got two of these now. This one and the other one I have is one that I owned and I sold to a pen collector friend who recently, about 3 years ago, he died, and he called me on the phone before he died. Like, obviously, he had to call me before he died, but he called me. He knew he was dying, and he said, I've told my daughter that, who I had met, I told my daughter that I'd like to have you get my pens. And I said, well, gee, that's so sweet of you, Steve. I'd very much be honored to have them back. And when he did die, he he was a textbook salesman uh, for grade schools, and he worked for this publishing company that published textbooks. So he would go around to school systems with his list of books and try to get them to buy them. And anyway, he loved kids and he loved pen collecting. He loved autograph collecting. And I said to his daughter, I said, what I would love to do is make a little card that I could print a little blurb about Steve and give to kids at pen shows, not one of his pens, but a pen that was like a Parker 45 or maybe a working wherever, or maybe some mechanical pencil or just something. I say, to the parents, I'd love to give you this, and this I'm doing this in memory of a pen collector friend of mine. But I've yet to do that. COVID happened and I never got around to designing something, but I still love the idea of, first of all, it helps if I'm entertaining the pen collector's child with a pencil. I'm allowing the pen collector to spend more time buying pens from me, but I'm also, with the kid, I'm slowly grooming them, not in the sense that
Not in
people say
the wrong.
sexual grooming them, but I'm turning them. It's like giving kids free marijuana in the
You're
playground.
penabling.
I'm giving kids free marijuana at the playground. I know they're going to come back and buy the LSD from me later. I'm getting them interested in using pens, and they're going to grow up and they're going to want to buy a pen not from me because I'll be dead by then, but from some other pen collector. So, if you can get them connected with this young, and also they might learn to appreciate their parents' collection, better by, having, this guy at the pen show give them something. So anyway, it's an idea that
Yeah, I think, the fountain pen world is kind of seeing a bit of a resurgence right now. I suspect that in
yeah,
about 50 years, there's going to be a whole new lot of fountain pens that show up in the antique market and
well, I'm sure,
similar to.
yeah, there are collectors collections and collecting goes through resurgences. Usually there's a generation that doesn't want anything old anymore. They want to get rid of all the their parents' shit, and they just want to have new things. And then,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe their kids, the new people have children, and the children say, gee, I saw this old movie that had someone use a pen like this. Did grandma have a pen like that? Oh yeah. Well, we threw them away. Well, damn it. Now they're going to come back and collect. They're right now. I have seen in the 40 years I've been doing this. I have seen every once in a while there's a new resurgence in pen
Mm-hmm.
collectors at pen shows. There was this couple of years when the collectible watch market sort of crashed, and a lot of watch dealers decided to get into pens because pens were now becoming hot, and they would come to these pen shows and just buy all sorts of fountain pens, thinking they were interested in buying them to flip, which maybe they did for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and then they realized when the watch markets came back, then they didn't have any interest in fountain pens anymore. So then there was a little bit of a lull. And then there's so many different inks coming out, and so many modern pens are being made that there's a whole bunch of new people journaling. But remember the scrapbooking craze that happened? I don't know
Yeah.
if that's still happening, but I know that it
There
was
is,
happening.
but there was a bit of a crash in that as well.
I would imagine there would be, because there's it happens, maybe I'm deciding that scrapbookers were female, and that's might be 80% correct, but a lot of it might have happened when the kids left the house, and they suddenly there was more time that the stay-at-home mom had to make something with her day, and this was a way to create scrapbooks about her family and things like that, vacations they took, and it became a thing. And then once she's done making the scrapbooks for everyone in the family, then she goes back to something else. So
well, there is the shiny
shiny
object,
object on the horizon. Yes. So there is that, but I do think that I think right now, if I were to sit down with every modern fountain pen collector and had them come into my room, I could probably convince half of them to go to vintage, because the vintage pens have the finer nibs, the more flexible nibs, the better feed quality, the better everything. That if what you're interested in is the line that comes out of the pen, I think I can convince anyone that a vintage pen is better than a modern pen.
Now there are some modern pens that are getting back to that.
There are some, but I wonder how well their nibs are going to last. This one's lasted 100 years. Are the materials in the pens, are the nibs that might be tipped with something other than iridium going to last as long as an iridium tip nib will? That's the thing I don't know, and I'll never know that. So Kim just said vintage is superior, and there's one pen user whose name is Minimal Scholar on Instagram, and I love his process of taking notes. He uses different pens with different kind of inks, with different kind of points to write his journaling, but his journaling
Mhm.
is more, uh, it's not, what he ate today and the weather's making him depressed. It's journaling about a book he's read, and he's also a teacher, teaches English.
Mhm.
So he's actually writing reviews of the book, and if he's quoting the author, he'll use a certain kind of ink color, and when he's writing his own opinion about that quote, he'll use a different ink color. So he has this whole vocabulary of different kind of pen, different kind of point. And I saw his beautiful journals, and I sent him 5 vintage pens for him to try, and he didn't buy a single one. He returned them all, thanking me, and but he didn't like any of them. And I thought, well, gee, that's really surprising, because I knew that I sent him a pen that had a finer nib than the finest nib pen that he had. I knew it had to be finer. And so when I met him in New Jersey at the pen show, I sat down with him at a table, and I said, okay, I sent you a pen like this. Can you show me how you wrote with it? And he wrote with it, in the same way. He held the pen the correct way. He did everything the correct way, except he applied pressure.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
said, no, you don't need to do that. So now hold the pen like this, and don't put any pressure on it at all. Just, have it cradled in your fingers and have the weight of the pen make a line. He said, oh my God, I can't believe how thin that is. And I said, well, that's the thing about these pens. You don't need to apply pressure. Now, he tried
Yes.
doing that with his modern pen, and I don't know whether the modern pen worked that way. I think
No, there's a
um,
difference. So like
there's a
this,
difference.
yeah, this Pilot Elite, this is not a terribly old pen. The production date on this, I think, is 1972,
Uh-huh.
um, for this particular pen based on the date code on it.
Yeah.
Um, and I never would have purchased. This is an extra fine, which in a Japanese nib is extremely fine. Um,
Uh,
I I didn't think I wanted an extra fine nib,
yeah.
uh, and this is a fairly recent addition to my collection. Um, I'd already had experience with writing with fountain pens.
Yeah.
Like I said, half of them are modern, and the amount of pressure that I was trying to use when I first started using this pen was way more than what it needed.
Uh-huh.
And once I realized, because it was scratchy at first,
Yeah.
and part of it might have just been the flow, hadn't caught up, but it was also I recognized that I was using too much pressure. And
Yeah.
once I adjusted that, this is one of the smoothest, most pleasant writers that I have.
Yeah.
And they do make a modern version of this too. It's called
Uh-huh.
the Pilot E95 instead of Elite
Uh-huh.
95, the E95S. And it's supposed to be a pretty decent pen too. I don't know how the nib compares to this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a difference. And I think that's for example, with the Schaefer, I
Mhm.
think this is the VFM model,
Yeah.
and it will write, but I have to press so hard. I'm like, I should not have to press
At
down
all. At
with a
all.
fountain pen nib
Yeah.
at all to get it
Yeah.
to write.
Yeah.
That's no.
Yeah. That's
And I have
yeah.
two of these, the same exact model, two
Uh-huh.
two of the same. I figured
Yeah.
I like the pen model, that if if I don't like the other one, I can always probably sell them to somebody. And they both write the same. They're both the same. So I don't know if I can fix them at some point by flossing the nib or what, but
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's again, those modern pens, especially that have sort of shaped or integral nibs with the feeds, it's hard to take them apart to clean them. Um, and you might just have to soak forever and a day. Um, one of the friend I stay with in Philly when I go to the Philly Pen Show, I've known for 40 years or more, and he is a pen collector. He's a lefty, writes with this horrible hook. And every time he puts a pen in his hand, I shudder because I feel it's going to break under his scrawl that he has. And I was at dinner with him and some of his friends, and I said, well, these are the pens I got today, and I handed it to people to try it out, and I said, you don't have to press down at all, just the weight of the pen will make a line. And my friend Jonathan said, you never told me that. I said, well, you didn't know that you didn't have to press down? Because when he presses down with his horrible scroll, backwards hook, lefty hook, he's already tormenting the poor pen. The pen's saying, give me back to Pierre, give me back to Pierre. I want daddy. let me go back. But I said, Jonathan, you don't have to press down. Just let the weight of the pen make a line. And he said, oh my God, it's so much better. The way he writes. He can't take advantage of applying pressure. I mean, I guess he can if he's really pays attention to what he's doing, but it was just it's interesting how, again, with like Minimal Scholar, don't press down. Now, do you watch Wasky Squirrel? Do you know his
Yes.
channel? I met him in person in Minneapolis, and we did a couple of YouTube videos together, and he's someone who applies the same pressure on any pen he uses. He doesn't go from 0 to 60. He goes from 30 to 40 miles an hour. He starts out already really applying pressure, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that you're not getting the full range, and not that you need to necessarily, but when I told him that, someone commented, I like the way Wasky writes. Don't tell people how to write differently. And someone, the first time that I sent Wasky, I made a video of me using 5 pens. And then I gave each pen, I had a separate piece of paper with me showing the full range of how it could write. And I sent them to Wasky, and then he and I did a video together where he's taking the pens, dipping them, and then trying to copy my kind of writing or the range I had. And anyway, we were talking back and forth, and someone commented, I much prefer watching Wasky write. When I watch Pierre Gustafson write, I lose the will to live because it's just scribbles.
It's just
I lose the will to live. And yeah, I know. I mean, look at this mess. But
that's where, it's like when you truly get into a relationship with your pens, you just enjoy using them.
Yeah, they don't have to say a single word. They don't have to make one list of an item that you need from the grocery store. They don't have to write a letter to the editor. You don't have to spell anything. All you have to do is make lines with it and just drive. It's like driving a sports car around the block. It's just fun to get in that sports car and drive it around the block. And,
right. And then people don't understand why you want more than one, right? You have a pen. Why do you need another one? Because it has a different personality,
Yeah.
When somebody collects sports cars, you don't go, why do you have more than one sports car?
Or if someone is a mechanic, well, let me just go into your garage. Okay, let me count up how many wrenches you have. One wrench would do it, that monkey wrench. But no, you have this crescent wrench, and you have this socket wrench, and you have this other kind of wrench. And you do need more. They do different things, and they feel different in your hand. I mean, why do you have two different pairs of shoes? Why do you, you know, we enjoy the variety, and sometimes we need it. Sometimes we're required to have two different wrenches. But anyway, my coffee is now cold and I need more of it, so I have to zap it. So this was really fun drawing
Yeah,
with
well,
you. And you have a thing you have to do by the end of today. Send an email or message to Cedar,
oh yeah,
and you don't have to make a date to pick a time to do this, but he also works at night. He's a custodian at a school. So,
Mhm.
but I think, but I know that he would enjoy meeting another pen person and hanging out and going drawing. And he has a lovely cat named Lily. I was there for 2.5 days, and the last 15 minutes I was there, the cat came out of hiding and looked at me from across the room. Didn't come near me, but just looked at me. And but it might be fun for you and he to hang out together. I have a plan for all of these pieces of paper I use. I've got a huge frame that is maybe 2 by 3 feet, and it's a shadow box frame. And I think I might just fill it with paper overlapping, that just have nonsense like this written on it. And then
Mhm.
I've got a lot of pens that don't work, that are either completely broken. I mean, for example, I could, let's say this was, if there was a crack on the cap, there was a crack on the threads, there was a broken nib, I could still put this in the case and frame it. I mean, I would never frame it so I couldn't break the glass and get it if I wanted to, but just have a bunch of pens on top of this collage of nightmare of lines, and
I do the
have
same thing with the paint from my palette. The
and
extra paint that I don't use on
yeah,
my palette, I scrape it off and it stays in a plastic baggie. And
yeah, nice.
eventually one day I'm gonna take it and
Turn it
use
into
it.
something. I and I can take a picture of it and send it to that person that said they lose the will to live, and I'll read in the newspaper that so and so killed themselves after getting an email from Pierre Gustafson. We don't understand why, but she's dead. He's dead. Whoever it was.
I'm gonna do a little Pierre Gustafson here. I'm gonna say, and remember you people who are watching, you and you and you and you, to hit the like button, and you right there in the corner. Yeah, you.
You.
Remember to subscribe. You haven't subscribed yet.
Yeah, I never tell people to do that, and I know other people do. Hit this like. We're going to have 3 million people. I might have
Yeah.
30 followers. You know, but I have a faithful audience, and one of them is Todd Merrill, and he said, "Pierre, I watch your videos, and I see that they're like 2 hours long. How can I don't have the time in the world to watch that?" But he does. He does watch them. So I invited him on once, and he and someone else that was live with me, the two of them talked about music and cameras and pens. And I looked up at the time that they were talking. It was about 2 hours. So time does fly when you're having fun. But I can certainly understand if someone wants to see, if I want to show them something that I did with a pen and I remember what video it is, I'll say, go to minute 42. Just ignore the stuff beforehand. Um, uh, So
Well, I don't think you're keeping a strict schedule either, right? Like
no,
some
I
people,
don't. Other people, I mean, there are
X
months
number of
when I
times
won't.
a week. And
Yeah, there are times when I stopped doing them at all, just because where I have my camera set up here was not where I had done it before, and so it's harder for me to get into this little tiny cramped space. I feel like every spot where I can sit down in my house is like the pilot of a 747. You have to climb in, you know,
well,
over
you're also not
over
doing,
all the controls, and you have to wedge your feet in, and then sort of somehow move your butt in, and then you're trapped.
and you're also not editing your content, right? You're not chopping it up
I don't,
into
and I don't have,
shorts and adding music and
I'm not
a
doing
video
any of that.
intro.
I'm not doing any of that shit. So I did want to make a video intro for all of them, and YouTube Studio didn't allow that anymore.
Huh, really?
And it was what it was the it was 21st Century Pier, like the 20th Century Fox
Mhm.
logo, and it was a drawing, a pencil drawing of the little searchlights, and I thought that would be a cute way to have them all begin. People often say that, Pierre, you skipped the 20th century entirely. You went from the 19th to the 21st, which is quite true. So people are amazed that I can use an iPad and use digital art, and because I missed all of the, my music tastes are early 1900s or before. So anyway, this was really fun. Tell Ben to flush those pens with the rubber ball to get them writing. With a rubber ball, with the rubber ball. Oh, with the rubber ball. The ones that have the
Yeah,
rubber.
yeah, I haven't tried it. I flushed them. I don't remember if I did any kind of like ammonia flush or anything with them, but I don't think it's the feed. I think it's the nib. I think it's just way too tight.
Sometimes I'll find, especially 51s, when you put a shell on a 51, if you have to replace a nib, it takes me forever to find a nib feed shell that work well together. Sometimes the shell
Mhm.
pushes the tines together, so they won't ever spread their little legs. They
Yeah, that could be too. And I don't remember if I was able to take this nib and feed out at all either. Because I have run across at least one pen in the past where it was brand new and there was that little bit of plastic right in the feed channel
Oh dear.
that was left over from production. And it's like, really? Your quality control is that bad?
That shitty. Here's a wherever pencil combo that has the steel nib, and again, this is a pen that I could learn to love. Well, I don't know if I'd ever love them, wherevers, but I would learn to like them. Right now, the only pen case that I have that's original, I used to have Parker pen cases and display cases and Waterman and Schaefer cases, but the only one I have right now in my collection is a wherever one, and it used to belong to Frank Dubiel, and he was a pen collector from Massachusetts here, and he and I started the Boston Pen Show, and he and I got along very oil and water. We were always fighting about how to run a pen show, and but he loved wherevers, and he seemed to think that they were every bit as good as any other pen company, but I don't think he believed that, but that's what he would always say, just to be contrary.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I have to go. I have to eat. You have to put pants on.
No, I got my pants on.
You have your pants on. Well,
definitely need more coffee.
Don't
We'll
tell
see you later,
anyone,
people.
Don't tell anyone I don't have pants on, but you're you're not going to see what it looks like. So anyway, bye everyone. Bye bye.